Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start tonight's concert, I would like to thank our conductor for this event, who volunteered his time and talents to lead us in the rehearsals and for tonight's concert, and is a very good friend to most of us. Thomas Landry, a Texas band director and music educator recognized for his commitment to developing musicians and building outstanding concert band programs, is a graduate of the University of Houston, where he earned a bachelor's in music education, graduating summa cum laude with trumpet being his major instrument. From 2014 to 2022, Thomas served as director of bands at Friendswood Junior High in Friendswood, Texas. Under his leadership, the band and concerts ensembles consistently earned superior ratings and state and national recognition for musical excellence. His students developed a reputation for discipline, musicianship, expressive performance, and technical achievement. One of the highlights of his teaching career came in 2021, when the Friendswood Junior High Wind Symphony was named the national winner of the Foundation of Music Education's Mark of Excellence National Wind Band Honors, placing the ensemble among the nation's finest middle school concert bands. The achievement was especially significant because it came during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tom said at the time about the awards, the achievement was won during a time that was arguably the most difficult school in recent history. Do you want to read that again? Okay, so the Friendswood bands had to deal with the changing rehearsal environments, limited rehearsal times, frequent absences, and through it all, the Friendswood bands achieved something they never had. Following the years in his public education, Landry, Mr. Thomas here, transitioned into the technology sector while continuing to support music education through consulting and contest administration. His career reflects a combination of educational leadership, analytical skills, and continued commitment to serving the school music programs. Okay. So Thomas currently leads the Pearland Community Band, as well as he's active in the Texas as a Texas band clinician, adjudicator, contest director, and music technology consultant. Speaking of the community band, many of the members here are also members of that group. Thomas has led the group, the Pearland Community Band, to a point where they're achieving higher standards each year, to the point where the group is recognized now as one of the Houston's area finest community bands. So, given that, I want to also talk about tonight's program. Tonight's program is brought to you by, with funding provided by the Pearland Musicians Foundation. The Pearland Musicians Foundation is a 501c3 organization that funds musical groups and musicians in the Pearland, Texas area. The Pearland Musicians Foundation is a newly formed nonprofit organization that just recently received our tax-exempt status this month. We soon will be able to provide via our website a place where you can contribute to the musicians of this area. While all of the musicians of the Pearland Brass Ensemble are volunteers, there are costs associated with this group to ensure that the infrastructure for the group is well established. Costs such as recruiting efforts, advertising events. The sheet music alone is a cost. It takes up to, for the first half of the year, the sheet music for this group costs $425. If you want to have an email sent to you, this is a second thing here. If you want to have an email sent to you, which will tell you about our concert dates and will include the program as well, please sign up for a newsletter that's out in the foyer. Now, we also want to tell you that tonight's concert benefits the Freeport or the Brazoria County Salvation Army based in Freeport, Texas. Okay, I have put up a couple little things out there. The monies that are donated go specifically to their shelters that they have, and I have information for the shelters there. And now I turn the program over to one of our members of the Pearland Men's Choir to MC for our Christmas in July program.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Plant, and I welcome you all. Thank you for coming, especially on a hot Friday night. And I've been told, and I will be reading a lot of notes to you guys in between each piece so that they can rest a bit. So the first song we're going to have tonight will be the national anthem. So if you could all please rise. Okay, thank you. Our second song will be Ave Maria from the opera Otello by Giuseppe Verdi. So, so here we go. I should have written the notes beforehand. By the 1880s, Verdi was in his 70s and effectively retired, having already secured his legacy as Italy's greatest opera composer. However, the brilliant drama of Shakespeare's tragedy lured him back to the stage. Verdi viewed Otello not merely as another opera, but as a crowning culmination of his dramatic vision. Verdi composed the choral Ave Maria while mourning close friend, using Mary as a symbol to explore themes of mortality, peace, and the afterlife. Within this intense story of jealousy and betrayal, Ave Maria serves as a moment of profound, quiet stillness. Verdi poured incredible warmth and reverence into the aria, balancing high dramatic tension with soft, sacred grace. Translating an iconic vocal aria into a brass setting takes a master's touch. Today's arrangement was crafted by Jayan Nagagolpa, an accomplished trombonist and who's also the resident arranger of the New York Chamberlain Brass Ensemble. I'll get this name right. Nandagopan, there's more of him later, designed this setting specifically for small brass ensembles, carefully distributing Verdi's lyrical melodies across the group so that the instruments sing with the warmth and legato breath of the human voice. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the Pearland Brass Ensemble as they perform Verdi's Ave Maria. Okay, now for our third selection of our program, the Pearland Brass Ensemble will bring you a modern, high-energy spin on one of the most recognizable holiday tunes in the world, the Carol of the Bells. While millions know it as an iconic Christmas carol, its original trace backs to trace back to a centuries-old Ukrainian New Year's folk chant called Shendrik, which translates to the generous one. In 1916, Ukrainian composer Mykola Leonovich took a simple four-note folk motif and transformed it into a masterpiece. Leonovich was a meticulous perfectionist who labored over the piece for over a decade through 5 different versions, and viewing it not only as a winter carol, but as a song of renewal and spring that told the story of a swallow flying into a home to herald a bountiful year. Tragically, Leonovich died in 1921 during political turmoil, never knowing that an American lyricist would later add the famous English Bells text in 1936, propelling his piece into global fame. Tonight's arrangement takes inspiration from the sensationally rhythmic, multi-layer a cappella performance made famous by the Grammy-winning group Pentatonics. Adapting that vocal virtuosity of a brass ensemble demands brilliant precision, dynamic range, and seamless teamwork, as the four-note motif cascades across every single horn in our quartet. Please join us in welcoming the Pearland Ensemble as they present Carol of the Bells. song. I'm sorry. Our next selection is one of the oldest and most beloved Christmas carols in the English-speaking world, the First Noel. Dating back to at least the 17th century and likely originating in Cornwall or southwestern England, this traditional English folk carol has been sung for generations as a joyful retelling of the Christmas story. The word Noel comes from the French word for Christmas, ultimately derived from the Latin word for birth. While many Christmas carols focus on a single moment in the Nativity, the First Noel traces the story from the shepherds hearing the angel's announcement to the journey of the wise men following the brilliant star of Bethlehem. What has helped this carol endure for centuries is its simple, memorable melody. It was first passed from one generation to the next by ordinary people long before it was ever written down, making it one of the true treasures of the Christmas season. Tonight, however, you'll hear this familiar melody in a completely different setting. Rather than a quiet, reflective hymn, Canadian Salvation Army composer Aaron Dyke transforms the First Noel into an energetic concert march. As he explains in his program notes, the traditional carol is given fresh treatment and presented in a standard march style. The text announces the birth of Christ, and the excitement of the good news is reflected in the energy and liveliness of this arrangement. This was Dyke's first published composition written while he was an active member of the Mount Pearl Citadel Salvation Army in Newfoundland. As a young composer, he honed his craft under the mentorship of several distinguished Salvation Army composers at the 2020 North American Composers Forum before this work was ever selected for publication. As you listen, notice how the familiar melody emerges from the driving rhythms of the march, growing in brilliance and excitement until the triumphant conclusion, a musical celebration worthy of the angel's proclamation, "Good news of great joy, for unto you is born this day a Savior." Please enjoy Aaron Dyke's march of the traditional English carol, the First Noel. Okay, for our fifth selection today, the Pearland Brass Ensemble is proud to present one of the most iconic and uplifting pieces in the entire British musical tradition, Jerusalem. Our next piece strays from our Christmas in July theme, but we think you'll be glad we added it to our program. The story behind the music is fascinating. The text began as a poem written around 1804 by the visionary English poet William Blake. It was inspired by an ancient folk legend suggesting that a young Jesus had once visited the green and pleasant land of England. Blake used this imagery to challenge his country during the Industrial Revolution, asking whether a better, more noble society could be built right at home. Over a century later, in 1916, during the darkest days of the First World War, the composer Sir Hubert Parry set Blake's words to music. Parry was asked to write a song to lift national spirits, but he wanted something deeper than simple wartime propaganda. When he handed the original manuscript to his friend and fellow musician, Henry Walford Davis, Parry famously said with characteristic modesty, "Here's a simple tune for you, old chap. Do what you like with it." Parry intended the song to be a unifying call for hope and mental fight, rather than marital aggression, so much so that he later reassigned the copyright to support the women's suffrage movement. Walford Davies later recalled looking at the manuscript in Parry's study, noting the composer's unwanted happiness over the melody, knowing it was a piece that people truly needed in challenging times. The arrangement you will hear today captures all the warmth, dignity, and triumph spirit of Parry's original melody, perfectly voiced for the rich, noble sonorities of a brass quintet. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for our sixth selection this evening, the Pearland Brass Ensemble is delighted to present a joyful and familiar family classic, the Chipmunk Song, arranged for brass quintet by our old friend Diane Nandigopen. Got it right this time. The original song was written and recorded in 1958 by Ross Bagdasarian, better known by his stage name as David Seville. Inspired by his young son's early September questions about Christmas, and by a chipmunk that stubbornly refused to move out of the road one day, Bagdasarian created a novelty Christmas tune featuring three high-pitched singing chipmunks, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. He achieved their distinctive voices by recording his own singing at half speed and then playing the tape back at normal speed. Released on November 17th of 1958, the song rocketed to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, remaining there for 4 weeks. It sold more than 4.5 million copies in just 7 weeks and became the first Christmas song ever to top the American charts. At the very first Grammy Awards in 1959, it won 3 awards, including Best Comedy Recording and Best Children's Recording. The arrangement you are about to hear comes from the Chamberlain Brass Series. Diane Nandigopen An Australian-born trombonist, arranger, and composer created this setting in 2018 as part of a large scale of more than 140 practical playable brass quintet arrangements. Nandakopan's work emphasizes clear melodic distribution among the instruments, solid ensemble writing, and a balance of fun and musicality. Qualities that make this playful Christmas favorite especially effective in brass. After this song, there will be a 10-minute break so that you can stretch your legs. Now, remember that this concert is meant to benefit the Brazoria County Salvation Army. There is a basket out in the lobby if you'd like to make donations. So now, sit back, smile, and enjoy the Chipmunk song as the Pearland Brass Ensemble brings Alvin and the gang to life in pure brass style. If you can take your seats down, we're going to start the second half of the show. Okay, welcome back everyone. As we begin the second half of the evening's program, the Pearland Brass Ensemble invites you into a moment of quiet reflection with one of the world's most beloved Christmas carols, Silent Night, composed by Franz Xavier Gruber and adapted for brass quintet by Pendleton Williams. The story of this music begins in the small Austrian village of Obendorf, near Salzburg. In 1816, a young Catholic priest named Joseph Mohr wrote a simple poem entitled Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. Oh, I got that right. 2 years later, on Christmas Eve of 1818, the church organ was unusable, possibly damaged by flooding. So Mohr asked his friend, Gruber, the local school teacher and organist, to set the poem to music that could be accompanied by guitar. Gruber composed a gentle poem to music. Gruber composed a gentle flowing melody that same day. That evening, Mohr and Gruber themselves performed the carol for the first time at midnight mass in St. Nicholas Church, with Mohr singing tenor and playing guitar while Gruber sang the bass part. Decades later, in 1854, Gruber himself confirmed the true origin of the piece in a document he called his authentic account, putting to rest various competing claims about its creation. From that humble beginning in a small Alpine church, Silent Night has traveled the globe, translated into hundreds of languages, and recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage. The arrangement you'll hear this evening was adapted for brass quintet by Pendleton Williams, a musician known for creating practical and expressive settings of familiar works for small brass ensembles. His version preserves the carol's reverent character while exploring a range of dynamics, textures, and tempos that allow the five brass voices to speak with both intimacy and warmth. We hope you enjoy this performance. We hope this performance brings a sense of peace and wonder as only this timeless melody can. Please enjoy Silent Night. After the quiet reflection of previous selection, we are ready to shift gears and bring some high-energy fun to the stage with Jingle Bells Salsa, a lively, Latin-flavored arrangement of the familiar holiday classic by Christian Morris. The original song we know as Jingle Bells was written by James Lord Pierpont and first published in 1857 under the title, The One-Horse Open Sleigh. Contrary to popular belief, it was never intended as a Christmas carol. Pierpont composed it as a light-hearted winter sleighing song, possibly for Thanksgiving, or simply as a popular parlor and musical show tune on its day. Only decades later did it become firmly associated with the Christmas season. Today, it is one of the most recognized and performed songs in the world. This particular version transforms that 19th century American tune into a vibrant salsa arrangement. Christian Morris, a Welsh-born composer and arranger based in Belgium, created it in 2019 for his Hoopla sheet music catalog. Morris has more than 30 years of experience writing for both professional and amateur musicians. He studied composition at the University of Surrey and later earned his master's and doctoral degrees at Cardiff University. In addition to his serious concert works, he has produced thousands of accessible arrangements designed to be enjoyable and effective for the brass ensembles. Jingle Bells Salsa is a perfect example of his approach. Rhythmic, playful, and full of drive, with the brass quintet capturing the infectious energy of salsa while still keeping the beloved melody clearly in view. So feel the beat, enjoy the spirited take on a holiday favorite. Here is Jingle Bells Salsa. Okay, for our next selection, we present a thoughtful and expressive setting of the beloved Christmas carol, What Child Is This?, arranged by Paul Voss for the Salvation Army's Maple Leaf Brass series. The words we associated with this carol were written in 1865 by the English poet and insurance manager William Chatterton Dix. While recovering from a serious illness, Dix penned a longer poem entitled The Manger Throne. Three stanzas from that poem later became the text of the carol we know today. The melody is the ancient English folk tune Greensleeves, a tune already centuries old by Dix's time and one that had carried many different sets of words over the years. It was only in 1871 that Dix's Christmas text was paired with green sleeves and published, creating the carol that has since become a staple of the season. This particular arrangement comes from the Salvation Army Christmas, Canada and Bermuda Territories Maple Leaf Brass publications. Paul Voss, a Canadian Salvationist and publisher, notes his arrangement is reflective of the text as it seeks to express the miraculous gift of Christ coming to earth as a baby. The music moves with a gentle legato character, allowing the brass and percussion to convey both quiet wonder and growing warmth as a familiar melody unfolds. We hope this performance invites a moment of quiet contemplation on the mystery and beauty at the heart of the Christmas story. Please enjoy What Child Is This? Energy high as we near the end of our program. The Pearland Brass Ensemble is delighted to present a swinging, high-spirited take on a Christmas classic, "O Come All Ye Boogie Woogie Faithful," arranged by Christian Morris. The original carol, known in Latin as Adeste Fideles, and in English as "O Come All Ye Faithful," has a fascinating and somewhat mysterious history. It first appeared in the mid-18th century in the manuscripts of John Francis Wade, an English Catholic who worked as a copyist for plain chant and lived for a time in exile in France. Although Wade is usually credited with both the Latin text and the melody, scholars still debate whether he composed the tune himself or simply transcribed as an existing one. The carol quickly spread across Europe, and by the 19th century had become one of the most beloved processional hymns of the Christmas season, calling the faithful to come and adore the newborn King. This arrangement takes that majestic 18th century hymn and gives it a completely different character. Christian Morris, the Welsh-born composer and arranger behind Hoopla sheet music, specializes in creating accessible yet stylish arrangements for amateur and intermediate ensembles. In this 2020 setting, he transforms the familiar melody into a driving boogie-woogie number, complete with swinging rhythms, walking bass lines, and playful brass riding. The result is fun, an invitation not only to come and adore, but to do with a bounce in your step and a smile on your face. Sit back, feel the swing, and enjoy "O Come All Ye Boogie Woogie Faithful." so welcome back to number 11 in our evening's program. Today's concert is all about celebrating Christmas in July, giving us a chance to escape the Texas summer heat and share the joy of music and enjoy the true spirit of giving. While many associated Christmas tunes focus on sleigh rides or winter snow, the heart of the holiday season has always been about community, humility, and peace. That brings us to our next selection, the iconic American folk hymn, Simple Gifts. Simple Gifts was written in 1848 by Elder Joseph Brackett, a member of the Shaker community in Alfred, Maine. The Shakers, formerly known as United Society of Believers in Christ's Second Appearing, valued simplicity, equality, and communal living. Their songs were often created as gift songs, music believed to be received through spiritual inspiration and used in worship and dance. Brackett's tune is a joyful invitation to live free from pride and complexity. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free. For nearly a century, the song remained largely within Shaker circles. It was the American composer Aaron Copland who brought it to worldwide attention when he incorporated the melody into his 1944 ballet score, Appalachian Spring. Since then, Simple Gifts has become one of the most recognized American folk melodies, frequently heard at holiday gatherings for its message of humble thankfulness. I'm sorry, folks. The arrangement by Matthew Cates presents the tune in a clear lyrical setting for brass quintet, allowing the warm, resonant voices of the instruments to highlight between instruments. You'll hear changing time signatures, rich harmonic colors, and an expressive theatrical solo section near the end, where the player literally turns away from the audience to play with dynamic freedom. Everything builds to a resonant, full ensemble final chord. Here is Matthew Cates' arrangement of Simple Gifts. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring our Christmas in July concert to a close, the Pearland Brass Ensemble offers a gentle benediction. God be with you till we meet again, with music by William G. Tomer and arranged by for brass quintet by J.P. Fudge. The words of this beloved farewell hymn were written in 1880 by Jeremiah E. Rankin, pastor of the First Congressional Church in Washington, D.C. Rankin deliberately composed it as a Christian goodbye, drawing on the original meaning of the word goodbye, a contraction of God be with you. He sent the text to William G. Tomer, music director at a Methodist church in New Jersey, who provided the warm, memorable melody we know today. The hymn quickly became a standard closing song for worship services, camp meetings, and gatherings of every kind. This particular arrangement carries a special dedication in memory of those lost on the RMS Empress of Ireland. In May of 1914, that Canadian Pacific ocean liner sank in the St. Lawrence River after a collision in dense fog. More than 1,000 lives were lost, including a large contingent of Salvation Army officers and members traveling to an international congress. The tragedy remains one of the greatest maritime disasters in Canadian history, and this hymn has long been associated with farewells and remembrance. Arranger J.P. Fudge has crafted a simple, heartfelt setting that allows the brass quintet to speak with quiet dignity and warmth. In the spirit of our Christmas in July theme, the music reminds us that the season's deepest message, peace, hope, and the promise of reunion, extends far beyond December. Thank you for sharing this evening with us. May God be with you till we meet again. And just remember, there's only 148 shopping days till Christmas.
Thank you.